when I can't see the way. But here is what the warrior knows. Hope is not the absence of pain. It is the decision to keep your heart open even in the middle of it. To hope is not to deny your suffering. It's to say, even so, I will keep my eyes open to the possibility that things might shift, that life may surprise me yet, that something good might still find its way through. Hope is not naive. It is not some wide-eyed refusal to see reality. True hope is rooted in strength. It understands darkness. It does not pretend things are better than they are. It simply refuses to close the door on light. There is a difference between blind positivity and grounded optimism. One ignores reality. The other walks beside it. Toxic positivity says, just smile. Everything happens for a reason. Grounded hope says, this is hard, and I don't know how it will turn out, but I am still here, and that counts for something. You do not need to plaster over your pain to carry hope. You can cry and still believe in beauty. You can feel lost and still leave the light on. You can name the grief and still trust that it won't always feel this way. Sometimes hope lives in the smallest places. A flower blooming through concrete, a child laughing in the distance, a deep breath that reminds you your body is still on your side, a memory that surfaces of a time when you didn't think you'd make it through, and yet somehow you did. Sometimes it's nature that teaches us best. Trees that let go of their leaves and trust in spring. Oceans that rise and fall and rise again. The sky, changing moods, never rushing its return to blue. The natural world does not question whether the dark times are part of the journey. It simply moves through them, and still, it offers beauty. Even in winter, there is wonder. Even in drought, there is dust that remembers water. Even in you, right now, there is a quiet place that knows how to begin again. You don't have to feel that knowing all the time. You don't have to believe it fully. Just a part of you. Just enough. That's what hope is. Not certainty, but a willingness. A willingness to see the cracks and still imagine light. A willingness to sit in the ashes and still whisper, maybe. Maybe not today, but someday. Maybe not this path, but another one. Maybe not in the way I expected, but something good will grow again. It helps to create reminders, symbols of your own meaning, not someone else's words, yours. Maybe it's a bracelet you wear that reminds you of what you've survived. Maybe it's a rock you carry in your pocket, smoothed by your own touch over time. Maybe it's a journal filled with letters to your future self. Maybe it's a photo, a quote, a candle. Maybe it's a playlist that helps you remember who you are when you forget. These little rituals are not silly. They are sacred. They tether you to your why. They remind you in the fog that you have a place in this story. Hope lives in remembering that your pain is not permanent, that your feelings are visitors, not definitions, that even if you can't see the end, you can still take one small step, and then another, and then another. Some people find hope in connection, in a single voice saying, "Me too," in a hand on the shoulder, in a message from a friend who doesn't need to fix anything, just wants you to know they see you. There is hope in being known, in not having to hide, in someone else's quiet belief in you when your own feels dim. There is also hope in giving hope. You may not realize it, but when you encourage someone else, when you say, "You're not alone," when you offer compassion to another human being, you're stoking the fire of your own inner light too. Because hope is not a possession. It is a practice, a choice. Even when it feels out of reach, even when your heart is tired, even when you've been disappointed. There's a story of a man who kept a lantern in his window every night, long after his daughter had gone missing. People told him it was hopeless, that he should move on. But he said, if she ever finds her way home, I want her to know the light never went out. That is hope. Not because we are certain something will happen, but because we want to live in a way that honors the chance that it could. Sometimes, the hope is not for a specific outcome. Sometimes, it's just the quiet trust that you are being shaped in ways you can't yet see. That all of this, the ache, the waiting, the unknowing, is making space for something deeper. It is okay to wobble, to question, to rest. Hope is not a test you pass. It is a seed you water. Some days it will bloom, some days it will not. But it is always there, beneath the soil. Even a flicker of light is enough to begin again. So tonight, if hope feels far from you, don't try to force it. Just notice the smallest good thing, the way the light hits your wall, the sound of your breath, the fact that you are still here, reading these words, willing to believe, just a little, that your story is not over. That matters. That is enough. Hope will come in its own time. All you need to do is leave the door unlocked, the light on, your heart open, just a crack. And one day, it will return. Not always loudly, but faithfully. Like the sunrise, like the tide, like you. Attention without judgment. Warmth without noise. A place to be, just as they are. This is the paradox of the warrior's path. The deeper you go into your own healing, the more others feel safe around you. Not because you perform strength, but because you embody it. Not because you try to lead, but because you walk with clarity. And that clarity becomes a lantern in a dim hallway. Real leadership does not demand attention. It invites trust. It doesn't rush in with solutions. It listens with presence. There is something powerful about a person who knows how to simply sit with another's pain. Not to fix it, but to say without words, you are not alone. To become an anchor is not to have all the answers. It is to become someone who holds space. This is not always easy, especially when you care deeply, especially when you feel their pain in your own bones. But strength, real strength, is not about doing everything. It's about being something. Being someone who doesn't flinch at another's tears. Being someone who doesn't rush to fill the silence. Being someone who says with their presence, I will not run from this with you. You may feel you are not ready for this role, that you are still too bruised, still uncertain, but you don't have to be whole to hold space. You only have to be honest, grounded, willing to stay, willing to be kind. The warrior does not lead from the front, shouting orders. The warrior leads from within, with a quiet that steadies the air, with eyes that say, we can walk through this, together. And this doesn't mean abandoning yourself. Being the anchor does not mean becoming invisible. It doesn't mean absorbing everyone else's weight or silencing your own voice. It means being centered enough to show up for others without losing yourself in the process. It's a balance, a practice. You learn when to step in and when to step back, when to offer words and when to offer silence, when to hold them and when to remind them they can stand. You are not the solution to every pain, but you can be a moment of peace within it. There's a story of an old man in a village who rarely spoke, but everyone came to him with their troubles, not because he gave brilliant advice, but because they felt calm in his presence. They would sit with him, speak their hearts, and somehow, just being near him reminded them of their own strength. He never tried to fix them. He just listened, nodded, sometimes smiled, and still they left lighter. Not because he carried their burdens, but because he reminded them they could carry their own. That is quiet leadership. You don't need grand speeches. You don't need to raise your voice. You need only to be present, to be steady, to be real. In your own life, you've probably known someone like this, a teacher who never raised their tone, but whose words you still remember, a parent or grandparent whose quiet hugs said more than any advice, a friend who, even in their own struggle, made space for yours. These people shape us, not with force, but with presence. You may not realize it, but you are becoming one of them. Every time you pause before reacting, every time you breathe through your own storm to hold space for someone else, every time you choose gentleness over control, you are anchoring the world in a small but powerful way. And yes, it takes energy. Yes, it asks something of you, which is why your care for others must be matched with care for yourself. You cannot anchor others if you are drifting, untethered, inside. Make space for your own emotions. Set your own boundaries. Let yourself be held too. You are not meant to be everyone's shelter while standing out in the rain. You need your own roof, your own fire, your own rest. Being an anchor is not a performance of strength. It is a practice of return. Return to center. Return to truth. Return to stillness. From that place, you give what you can, without sacrificing what you need. And if ever you feel like your quiet doesn't matter, that your calm doesn't count, remember this: the strongest trees make no sound when they hold the soil together. The mountain doesn't move, it simply remains. And in that stillness, others find direction. You are not meant to fix everyone. You are meant to become someone who listens, someone who sees, someone who doesn't turn away. There is a time for helping, and a time for simply being near. There is a time for offering advice, and a time for just saying, "I'm here." You may not get applause, you may not be noticed in the ways the world celebrates, but the people you anchor, they know, they feel it, and they carry your steadiness with them, even when you're gone. In the end, the warrior does not seek to be the loudest. The warrior holds space, not attention. They are not the center of the room. They are the corner others lean against when the room begins to spin. This is a sacred thing you are doing, becoming this kind of person, not through effort, but through presence, not through perfection, but through honesty. Keep going, keep listening, keep standing in your quiet way, because the world doesn't need more noise, it needs anchors. And you, without fanfare, without needing to be seen, are becoming one. Let that be enough. You're still here, and more than that, you are steady. This is the quiet evolution the world often misses. Not louder, but clearer. Not harder, but wiser. You haven't armored up. You've uncoiled. You've released the tight grip and learned to hold yourself with gentleness. This is strength, not the clenched fist, but the open palm that still does not break. You've walked through shadows and didn't become them. You've cried without shame. You've paused when others rushed. You've chosen stillness over chaos, grace over reaction, patience over performance. And now, something in you has settled, not into complacency, but into clarity. You are no longer fighting everything, not because life stopped challenging you, but because you've stopped challenging your own worth in every moment. You've begun to trust the ground beneath you, the strength within you, the wisdom that arises not in force, but in stillness. The peace beyond the battle is not a place without hardship. It's a place where hardship no longer shakes your sense of who you are. You don't need to prove yourself anymore. You've already walked through fire and rebuilt something gentler, truer, more enduring. Think of a still lake. It reflects the sky. It holds light and shadow alike. It doesn't chase or cling. It rests. It receives. And when something disturbs its surface, it ripples, but always returns to calm. This is you now. Not untouched by life, but unhardened. There is depth in you, patience, warmth, the kind that doesn't need to be announced, only lived. People may not see the path it took you to get here. That's okay. The warrior doesn't need validation to know their journey was real. You carry that truth in your breath, your choices, your quiet way of rising each day. And if ever you forget, if the waves return or the winds howl too loud, remember this: you have not failed. You are not broken. You are simply being asked to remember, to return to the practices that center you, to anchor again in what you already know. You've risen before. You'll rise again, because the warrior is not the one who never falls. It's the one who never forgets how to rise. Let that be your reminder in the moments that feel heavy, in the silence after a setback, in the ache of starting over. Let it be your compass when hope feels far and the road feels steep. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to doubt. But don't erase the strength that got you here. Don't forget the chapters you've already survived. Don't overlook the gentleness you've learned to carry. There is nothing weak about being soft. There is nothing foolish about holding hope. There is nothing small about walking through your life with quiet, conscious presence. You've become someone who doesn't just survive pain, but transforms through it. You've become someone who doesn't just hold it together, but holds space for others to do the same. This is the warrior's peace. A peace that lives not in escape, but in engagement. Not in retreat from the world, but in how you return to it. More anchored, more compassionate, more rooted in who you are. Let yourself feel the grace of that. Let yourself notice the ease you carry now, the way you speak slower, choose more mindfully, love more deeply, not in fear, but in freedom. You are no longer driven by the need to outrun pain. You've sat with it. You've learned from it. You've softened where you once clenched. You've breathed where you once panicked. And in doing so, you've made peace with life as it is. Not perfect, but present. Not painless, but beautiful. The battle was never just about hardship. It was always about becoming. And you have become someone worth knowing, worth trusting, worth following. Not because you lead with force, but because you lead by example. Let this be your knowing now, that you are enough, even on the quiet days, that your presence is a gift, even when no one names it, that your resilience is not loud, but it is real. You are the still lake, the grounded tree, the mountain that does not move. And when the next storm comes, as storms do, you will not be unmade. You will breathe, you will pause, you will choose, and you will remember who you are. You are the warrior, not because you fight, but because you rise, because you remain, because you continue with grace when it would be easier not to. That is power, that is peace, and it is yours, always.